Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Tim and Tim Show and Making Moves in Multifamily Live. Today, we're talking about negotiating deals in today's market. Tim, how you doing today, man?
Not bad. Can't complain. A little tired, but
Just a couple things floating around. Staying busy, as they like to say.
yeah, man. Definitely staying busy. Those. I'm looking forward to vacation.
Oh yeah, you're going to Alaska in June, right?
Yeah, Alaska. I'm gonna go sit on a boat. Um, my daughter, my daughter wanted to do an Alaska cruise. I'm not a cruise guy, but I was like, all
Yeah,
right.
we're not cruise people either.
No,
You either are or you're not. There's no
yeah.
like, I would do it if the right occasion came up. You're like, nah.
Yeah, I will say if I was gonna do one, I'll do that one because I'm not getting on a boat in the Caribbean. I'll tell you that.
No,
And
no, no, no.
yeah,
It's funny. My grandparents actually did a trip, and they did a cruise in Alaska, and they said it was probably one of their most favorite trips they've ever done.
yeah, yeah. I've heard a few people say that. So
Yeah. So, what cruise line are you going on?
we're doing Holland America, which if anybody's
Um,
watching this, you're probably going to reach out and be like, "I'm going to be cruising with the old people." Well, guess what, folks? I'm almost
Hey,
50.
Tim, you labeled it, not me, buddy.
It's for whatever reason when you do the reviews, it's like, hey, it's more of an old person laid back vibe, and I'm like,
Sounds good.
yeah, that sounds good. That sounds all right.
Oh yeah. Oh, Dennis is
Where you
going on
going,
a cruise
Dennis?
in January. Where are you
Where
going, Dennis?
we have to wait for Dennis to type it back, folks.
I know. Yep. Oh, the anticipation is killing me.
Let's take bets. Where's he going? Oh, I was
Bahamas.
I wasn't going to do
No,
Bahamas.
no, no. Oh.
So
All right. So, what to talk about this week? Tim and I, we got quite a bit of property for sale right now. And you know what is funny? I had an aha moment last night. Is I got an email from a broker, and all of the active listings are either from us or a friend of ours. And it was like, wow, this world really is getting smaller and smaller if one broker is handling all of our sales right now. I was like, wow, this kind of cool, because
yeah,
not that long ago we were on the other side of the table and looking at like everybody's selling property and stuff like that, and they're like, yeah, one day we'll be on that side of the table. Well, at last, here we are. We're on the
one
other
day
side
is
of the
here.
table. What's that?
One day is here.
One day
Yeah,
is here. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, so we get a lot of feedback, and I talked about this quite a bit last week of why we are trying to why yeah, growth. Yeah.
That's a
Um,
Kino. What's up, man?
yeah, I know. I haven't seen him on here in a while. So what was I man, I just lost my thing or my thought process
I
there.
threw you off, man. I'm sorry.
I know, yeah. Anyway, we got quite a bit of property for sale, and what I wanted to talk about today was, as sellers, what are we paying attention to in buyers' offers? And you might say, well, Tim, that doesn't really help me that much because I'm not really selling property. I'm trying to buy property, and I think you got to think about it a little differently, because if you can think about what a seller is paying attention to and what their interests are, I think you can take away something from this in order to learn how to structure your offers a little differently or a little better, in order to make your offers a bit more favorable, or at least you as a buyer more favorable. Maybe and that's a key point, is maybe your offer isn't as favorable, but you as a buyer are, and that comes with a heavy weight behind it. I mean, there's significant value behind being a great buyer with even though you might not have the best offer. And a lot of that comes down to, I don't know, we could say it at the same time through three, two, one, certainty to close.
Right.
Nope, you didn't say okay. Well, maybe.
I just said right.
Right.
Like I didn't know you were going. I didn't know you were going to do that, but certainly to close. Yes.
So yeah, we received a lot of offers. I mean, on one property, one, two, three, four, five, six. We had about 7 offers in 3 weeks. So people are still making offers. I mean, I don't want people to think that offers are not being made. If you're buying property in good markets with solid growth, in the Carolinas, or um, and any growth market, there's a lot of places that have growth. The greater Savannah area, very big growth market right now because of the Hyundai
Mhm.
plant coming in. Most of the Carolinas, doesn't even have to be coastal or Charlotte or Raleigh. It can be a lot of the surrounding markets are growth markets because they have a lot of development and manufacturing coming into play. People are still making offer deals are still being done, which is a very important thing to remember. Now, some of the offers are less favorable than what we had wanted. However, that's because there's a lot of people out there that are opportunists right now that,
Yeah.
this misconception of if you're selling property today, you need to sell it and you are under pressure or you are a motivate. Oh, wait, sorry. We were talking about this. It was the difference between motivated seller and a distressed property or a distressed. Oh, it was a distressed seller versus a distressed. Um, Damn, what the hell? I can't even think straight right now. I'm seeing dogwood every time I open my email. Where's your offer, Dennis?
Yeah, but guys, like Tim's making a really good point because we got that one. I know which property he's talking about. Surprise, that we got like 6 offers on. We also got another property that's out there for sale that we've received. I think we've had like 3 offers on it, and one's in the ballpark of what we would take. The rest are all over the board. Like there's even one. It's like what we paid for it 2.5 years ago. And that's kind of what you're seeing right now. You're seeing the guys who are out there like, I'll pay you what it's truly worth. And then you're seeing guys that are out there doing exactly what Tim's talking about. Is like, this must be a distressed deal. There's the only reason anybody would put something on the market right now is because they have to sell. That's the assumption people are making. And the deal seekers are out, folks. Like they're looking for deals where people have to sell, right? So they're throwing in these ultra low ball offers for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
very opportunistic. Yeah, there's distressed deals that are for sale, right? Because they're struggling as deals. And then there's distressed sellers. Distressed
right.
sellers typically have maybe debt that's expiring or they're running out of cash or there's a lot of other circumstances that would classify you as this distressed seller. I got you a dollar. um, or you can have a distressed deal. A distressed deal is one that is really suffering because it's got a lot of vacancy, it's got a lot of renovations that need to be done. Potentially the buyer overpaid for it, so they're underwater on evaluation. But they might not have to sell it, but they want to because it's just become a headache property, right? So there's a lot of like very minute, very small details that kind of distinguish between a distressed seller and a distressed property, and those people need to learn how to target distressed sellers because those are the people that are going to accept one of those super low ball offers just to get out of it because maybe they're in foreclosure or yeah, I mean, foreclosure is the biggest one, right? If they're in foreclosure, they're not paying their debt service, like that's a distressed seller. They're going to take whatever they can get in order to kind of salvage whatever investor cash or money that they can. But a distressed deal would be somebody that didn't really pay attention to the deal, never really put many money into it. As they say, they kind of sucked everything out of the property and they never reinvested anything back into it. And now they're trying to go after top tier market rents because you've had increases in property taxes and insurance, yet they can't get those top tier rents to offset the increase in the expenses. So now you have a distressed property, not a distressed seller. So there's a lot of different things. A perfect timing. We have a distressed seller, not a distressed property, which always people confuse. Yeah, I'm glad that somebody else recognizes that because I don't want to say it's a huge difference, but there is a difference between a distressed
For
seller and a
sure.
distressed property for sale.
Yeah. So what I think you got a third category in there too that you're seeing right
Oh,
now.
yeah?
Yeah. So what would you, and anybody out there in social media land, feel free to chime in with what you would call this. What do you call a property that's not distressed in debt, not distressed in the deal itself, um, but it's there's stress operating it right now because let's be honest, guys, it's not easy to operate right now. So, but the partnership team, right, is you got a partner or something like that who's just tired of the headache of the property, so they want out. So the partners are like, okay, then the only way out is to sell, right? What do you call that one? I mean, does that fall in those two categories, or would you classify that one slightly different?
Hmm. I
Because
that's a motivated seller, but they're not distressed.
right,
I
okay,
I
we'll
would put
just
that
call
in
it
the motivated seller category because they're motivated
okay.
to wheel and deal and come up with a solution to the problem. They're not gonna sell it for pennies on the dollar, but they are gonna come up with maybe something like a seller finance alternative that's like, "Well, we wanna get out of this deal. We wanna make it here. We understand this is where you gotta be. This is where we wanna be, but let's figure this problem out." Versus a distressed seller, it's just gonna be like, "I'm gonna take whatever I can get and just be
Yeah.
done with this thing."
Or maybe that motivated seller is I know we all acknowledge we don't have to sell. I think I could get 5 million for it, but 4.5 is a really good return for my investors. And if we get an offer there, we'll go, right? Maybe that
Yeah.
kind of thing.
That's a
Yeah.
I would consider that that's a motivated seller because they have, they have a motivation to sell because they can either realize some gains or they got another opportunity that they wanna move the money to. They're willing to wheel and deal, maybe come down off their price a little bit, but, if they're not forced to sell, then they're not going to because they don't have to.
Yeah. And Alex, like I don't in some cases I don't disagree with you. I think the scenario I'm talking about is not necessarily undermanaged, right? Because let's just take an example where you got three people on a partnership team and two of the three are working very hard. It's the one guy who's like, this isn't going the way I wanted it to. It's taking way more time than I thought, and I'm burned out. I don't want to do it anymore, right? So it's still being managed. It's just the bulk of the work's falling on two guys instead of three. That kind of scenario, right? Um,
That happens all the time. I mean,
all the
all
time.
over the place because
Yeah,
everyone's everyone's focus and goals and things like that change. I mean, I know we set goals on a quarterly and an annual basis, but at the end of the day, it's still, they still subject to change. I mean, look, when we did our 2023 goals, Tim and I, we had put together this plan of like what we were going to achieve, and we got to throw in a wrench and a complete curveball, and now everything has completely changed, and it's not better or worse; it's just different.
yeah,
So we were motivated in other ways to do different things because our alignment and our end goal changed.
yeah, yeah. I mean, and that happens, right? Like people pivot, plans pivot. Ours pivoted in a big way in 2023, right about this time in 2023. Um,
Yep.
and you just you got to move forward, right? But back to what we were talking about, like, so how do you as a seller deal with those different scenarios, right? Like, I we don't, knock on wood, we don't have any of those situations, distressed debt or distressed deals or anything like that. So what
Pivot.
I got Ross in my head right now. Like, I, my wife and I make that joke every time we have to move a piece of furniture. It's
It
funny.
doesn't come on, doesn't anybody?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So,
That's funny. Good
Anthony,
job.
Anthony,
Nice
throwing
one,
us off
Anthony.
track here. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So,
right.
so I don't know. Like, how do you? Okay, Tim. You got a deal for sale, right?
Mhm.
I guys, I can ask him this question because he's talked to me about it. I know the offers that have come his way. So, you got a deal for sale. How do you deal with the buyer who shows up thinking you're one of those two, distressed seller, distressed deal, right?
Oh,
Which guys he's not, by the way. So
yeah, so I've gotten a bunch of offers that were like maybe 40% below my list, 25 to 40% below my list price. And
right,
my counter to them was like, I came off like 25K or 50K of my purchase price just to show them like, hey, like I saw your offer and I'm responding to it, but I'm not the guy that needs to accept an offer that's, because I think the tactic there was let me throw a lowball offer and see how much he's willing to come off of his price just off the cuff, right? To see if he's, being reasonable or not. And then if I respond with, a 25 or $50,000 price reduction, that's me kind of saying, through the offer process, like I don't have to sell this and I'm not going to accept your offer. I'm willing to come off like a little bit of my offer, but not what you were thinking about.
yeah. So did you? I mean, did you? Because guys, I'll tell you, like I got it one that's for sale right now, and it's neither one of those two categories, and we've had some offers that are less than we paid for it, and quite frankly, I'm just not even entertaining those offers. It's just
Hmm.
a no,
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's no right or wrong way to do it, right? I mean,
right?
because you handled it one way and I handled it another. I mean, you could always counter offer them at with like a $10,000 price reduction off your list price, and that clearly sends the message. I don't know, for whatever reason, I'm not a fan of just not responding. Like I'm gonna give them feedback, no matter what, like no matter where the offer's at, like I would just respond or tell the broker to respond like, "Hey, look, I'm not a distressed seller. I don't have to sell this. I'm an opportunist where if I can sell this for this price and I can make some money and move it into the next deal, like I'm gonna, but I'm not coming down to that price. So like, you could reevaluate your numbers, resubmit a new offer, but I'm not accepting that offer. Or you don't even have to counter with a price. You can just counter with that, right?
Yeah, yeah. No, and there's definitely different ways to handle that for sure. In a couple of cases where we've done that, where I've done that, it's been specifically because in one case in particular, the potential buyer reached out ahead of time.
Hmm.
He was like, what's your motivation? We were upfront with him. We are like, this is why we're selling. And then he came in with that offer. And I was like, no.
Yeah. So Alex has a good point here. Broker to broker transparency helps. In the commercial world, it's not usually broker to broker. It's typically broker between the buyer and the seller. Now there can be another broker in between, but typically you don't have multiple brokers. It's just the listing broker. But yeah, I mean, I've had conversations with my broker because remember they work for me as the seller and I pay their commission and they know exactly what the situation is. They know what I want to do with the money, where it's got to go, how much I need to get out of it. So the broker's got full transparency from the sell side of like what I'm looking for. He has a fiduciary to at least present any offer that comes in, and I can do with it what I please. But 9 times out of 10, they're going to present an offer that he knows is never going to meet my budget, and will either come with, "Hey, this is what I think we should do," because he knows the buyer or has had a conversation with the buyer. He can say like make some suggestions of like, here's what I'm thinking, which route do you want to go down? I'm like, actually I like that route, let's do that, and then add XYZ comments on there or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's less it's definitely a much more open conversation now between buyers and sellers through the broker or direct. But yeah, not like it used to be a couple of years ago where it was just like, nope, I'm just gonna throw it up on the market and get whatever I can get for it.
Right. So what do you think about pushing for max price right now?
Depends. Are you a motivated seller or not? If you're not a motivated seller, then you're probably not going to accept less than your max price, right? But if you are a motivated seller because you have another opportunity on the table, then you're going to be able to you're going to eventually you're probably going to talk yourself down and just say, you know what, I'm just going to accept this because I'm ready to move on. Because like mentally, you've checked out of the deal, right? You're just like mentally, I've moved on from this deal. I wanted to get this price, but I'm not, which is unfortunate. But like, I don't want to lose this other opportunity over here, so I'm just going to take what I can get for it at this point.
Yeah, I think see, and folks, this is interesting. So, Tim and I are partners. We have different mindsets, right? Like,
Hmm.
so, what I'm fully of the mindset right now. Like, this is not a time to push max price. Like, for instance, let's say you want 4.5 for something, right? 4.5 million, and you think you could probably get that in most markets, but not where it is today, and things like that. So if I know, Dennis, you're mentioning velocity of capital. If I'm looking to make the most of my velocity of capital because there's another deal I'd like to do, right? That I know I can get in at a good basis, then I might be like, you know what? Let me make 300K on this deal over here and move it over there because I'm gonna 3x that. Whereas if I leave
Yeah.
it over here, I maybe grow at 10%. So, instead of going after that 4.5, if I know I'll take 4.3, if I get that 4.3 or 4.35 offer, and that person comes with 1, 2, 3 surety of close, I'm
Ah,
probably
right.
I'm probably taking that 4.3, 4.35 offer. I'm not pressing for 4.5, right?
Yeah.
Because Because again, it comes down to the last thing I want to do is get a 4 or 5 offer and the guy to show up 45 days later and be like, yeah, I'm not closing on this. You
Yeah,
know?
oh, that's fair. Yeah, that's even worse, right? That getting under contract and then them not closing like the day before due diligence, or even the day before you're actually supposed to close.
Yeah. Do you take financing contingencies right now with any specific terms in them?
Mm, don't like to.
Yeah. I don't
But,
know, folks. I don't know, folks. What do you guys think? Like, if somebody shows up and they're like, I'll put this on their contract, but it's contingent upon me getting 6.5% interest rate at 70% LTV. What are you doing? I know
it's
what I'm
yeah.
doing. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I know what I'm trying to do.
yeah.
But I don't know. Yeah, that's it. Ah, you found the button, Tim. You pushed it.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff like, yeah, guys, like basically what I'm getting at is like right now I'm pushing terms. That's what I'm
Yeah,
pushing more than anything.
yeah,
If I can get around that price I'm looking for, if I know what my number is, if I'm at or above that number, I'm not pushing for an extra 100 or 200 grand. I'm pushing terms.
yeah,
Um, you know, um,
yep,
I think me personally, I think that's the market we're in.
yeah. No, I wanna talk about Okeno's comment here about there's a bunch of newbies like myself sending out tons of LOIs hoping one will stick. All right. So this is kind of like the whole reason why we did this show, right? Because if you can think about how Tim and I are sitting here having a conversation as sellers versus what you just said, I can almost guarantee you that if you're just sending out all of these tons of LOIs and hoping one that's going to stick, you're really spinning your wheels there and not really making any traction, because there's a couple of things that you should be doing in order to build a better relationship with the buyers and the brokers on deals you actually want to buy. So when you're underwriting these deals, like, you need to have a conversation with the broker or whoever's listing the deal. If it's the seller directly, call them and have a conversation with them and build some level of relationship so that you can understand what the seller is looking for so that you can make an offer that's going to solve the seller's need. Right. So if you spend a little bit more time on each one of your deals and less of this spray and pray, the old spray and pray method or the shotgun approach, you're going to have a higher success rate, because now you're starting to understand what the seller and the broker see in the deal versus what you see in the deal,
Yeah.
and you got to have a conversation with them to help bridge the gap. I can guarantee you that a lot of these offers that even I've gotten on these properties where it's 40% below the list price that they're not even getting responses for, I can guarantee you it's a bunch of newbies sending out LOIs hoping one will stick. Right.
Yeah.
But like, if you actually want to make some level of progress in this industry, you have to build the relationship with the person listing the deal and have a conversation with them about, okay, well, this is where I'm at. This is my rents, my expenses, my capex budget, my cap rate, all of the things that go into analyzing your deal and like where your return levels need to be. Because I can give you an actual example. This was maybe a year and a half ago. I was having a conversation with somebody that was selling a deal in Fayetteville, and I called them and I went through it, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, well, this is my years 2, 3, 4, and 5 income, 2, 3, 4, 5 in expenses. Here's my total capex budget. Here's where I think I can sell the property at in 5 years at this cap rate. And the broker's like, yep, 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 yep. I agree with all of your assumptions. And I was like, okay, so then why are you asking $13 million for this deal and I'm at 9? And you know what it turned out to be was my level of return that I needed to make for my investors was different than what the seller was targeting in a buyer. The
Yeah.
the seller was targeting a hedge fund or an insurance company or this or that or the other that was okay with an 8% return. And I'm like, no, no, no. My investors, they want to see, 15 to 20% or better. And they're like, and then after we got to that point, it was like, oh, well, this is not the deal for you to be buying if that's the level of returns you want to be making. Right.
Yeah.
And that was when that light bulb moment came off for me about a year and a half or 2 years ago, was that I need to be talking with the person that's listing the deal so that I can bridge the gap on the information in order to make a better offer, or figure out what the buyer was looking for and why, in order to see if it was a road worth pursuing.
Yeah. Because Aquino, like, And sorry, I just want to provide you something here. Like, I
Totally.
agree. Yeah, that's it right there. Like he just said it. This is where I was getting ready to go because I'll use an example for you. Tim and I sold something back in November, right? And we received a bunch of offers. Um, but it became very clear as those offers were coming through, the guys who were doing exactly what you're talking about, they're just shotgun approaching. Like it became very clear. You could see it in the LOI, and you could actually see in the LOI who was a newbie,
Hmm.
right? Because guys who have done this a couple of times, done this a few times, their LOIs look very different, right? They learn going through the closing process, like what they're looking for, what sellers are looking for, what brokers want them to do, um, and their LOIs get more mature, if you will. So,
That's a good
one
way
of
to
the
say it.
yeah, one of and I'm the same boat. Like if I showed you one of the first LOIs I put in
Oh
versus one
gosh.
I
Oh,
sent in like a
terrible.
year later, oh God, like way different. I went from like 5 pages to 2 pages to 1 page, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
And and here's the other thing. I mentioned something a minute ago, terms. Like right now, I'm motivated by terms. So if I get an LOI right now from a guy who's super aggressive on price and he hasn't hit any of the terms that my broker knows I want, and I know if you talk to my broker, he will tell you what I'm motivated by, right?
Hmm.
If I get an offer, a super low offer, and those terms are nowhere near anything I've asked for, that's not a serious buyer. I'm not doing that, right?
Right.
Like I'm looking at that and I'm going, that gets the no, the real quick no, right?
Yeah, because as a seller, my thought process there would be this guy is just or girl is just trying to get this property locked up under contract, and then they're going to try to take my knees out from underneath me with some
Right.
massive retrade or whatever because they're
Yeah.
not paying attention to the information that I'm giving in order to make this, a transaction both parties are going to be happy with.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And same thing, right? Like if I get a super aggressive price, but the terms are very, very buyer centered, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm looking at that and I'm like, yeah, you're trying to give yourself six outs, right? Six level of outs. I'm okay with two or three, but six is too many, right?
Hmm.
And so I would encourage you, yes, get those LOIs out there. Just make sure your LOIs are well structured and tailored to the deal you're submitting to. Because sellers are different. Every seller is different. Every deal is different. Their motivation is different. That LOI that you send to the distressed buyer, I mean the distressed
It's
seller
it's
is
going to be
different
different. Yeah.
is going to be different than the one you send to me. So just kind of like be conscious of that. Because I will tell you, like if you do that shotgun approach and you throw a bunch out there, your success rate's going to be like 0 to 1%.
Yeah, and it's
But if you
exhausting. It'll take the wind out of your sails because you're working so hard and not
yeah,
making any progress.
yeah. So dial in on like those 10 that you want to put out there, and then make those 10 offers really, really strong LOIs, right?
Mhm.
Um, and present yourself in the best light. Because
Yeah,
guys, I keep
commercial
hearing,
real estate is not like residential where the shotgun approach works.
yeah, because guys, like there's this idea out there right now that nobody's buying deals. I don't find that true at all. I don't have a single deal that's on the market right now that has not had multiple offers. Right
Mhm.
now, are the offers what I want necessarily? No, not all the time. But everything that I've got out there has had, some offers on it.
Mhm.
So, make sure there are people buying for sure.
Yeah. No, I agree. But yeah, I mean this is all really great conversation. I think it kind of exposes or not exposes, but gives a little bit more transparency with how people think about a transaction, right? Because it's not one-sided; it really is a two-sided transaction. Where you don't want to have buyer's remorse or seller's remorse, but there's also a bit of a game to it too. But everything comes back to the relationship that you build with the buyer, the seller, the broker. If you're listening and paying attention to what they want and you can figure out how to structure something that works for you and them, your success rate will be significantly higher.
Yeah. Yeah. Completely agree. So,
So, all right,
yep,
guys. Well, I
nice.
appreciate everybody joining and having some level of engagement and involvement. I really like this conversation today. So I appreciate you joining, and we will be in tune next week, next Tuesday. So,
Yeah.
all right. See
All
y'all
right,
next
guys.
week.
See you
Peace.
later.